At the Thanksgiving dinner table, my successful daughter stood up with her wine glass and said, "Let's toast to Mom, finally enjoying that $3,000 a month Dad sends her." I felt my face go white as I whispered, "Sweetheart, I haven't seen a penny." That's when my daughter's boyfriend choked on his turkey, and I knew my entire world was about to shatter. I'm Barbara, and at 63, I thought I'd survived the worst life could throw at me. My divorce from Richard 15 years ago had been devastating, but I'd rebuilt myself. I worked in a school cafeteria, barely making ends meet on $32,000 a year, but I was proud. I had my independence, my small apartment, and most importantly, I had my relationship with my daughter Jessica, or so I thought. That Thanksgiving was supposed to be special. Jessica had invited me to her beautiful townhouse in the suburbs, the one she'd bought 2 years ago with her high-powered marketing job. She'd always been driven, my Jessica. From the time she was little, she wanted more than what Richard and I could give her. I couldn't blame her. We'd struggled financially her whole childhood before Richard finally made partner at his accounting firm right around the time Jessica left for college. The divorce came when Jessica was 25. Richard had an affair with a colleague, someone younger, someone who didn't have stretch marks or gray hair or the tired eyes of a woman who'd worked 3 jobs to help put their daughter through community college. The settlement was minimal. After 20 years of marriage, I walked away with almost nothing because Richard's lawyer was better than mine, and I was too exhausted to fight. But Richard felt guilty. I'll give him that. After the divorce, he promised he'd always take care of me, that even though our marriage was over, he wouldn't let me struggle. "You sacrificed so much for Jessica and me," he'd said during one of our last civil conversations. "I'm going to make sure you're comfortable. I'm setting up a monthly transfer. $3,000. It's the least I can do." I'd been touched. We hadn't parted as friends, but that gesture meant something. Or it would have, if I'd ever received a single dollar of it. The dinner table was crowded with people I didn't know. Jessica's boyfriend Marcus, a slick financial advisor type who wore designer watches and talked too much about cryptocurrency. Her co-workers from the marketing firm, all young and polished, and making me feel ancient in my Kohl's sweater. Her best friend Tanya, who barely acknowledged my presence. I'd brought my famous green bean casserole, the one Jessica used to beg me to make every holiday. But it sat at the end of the table, untouched, while everyone praised the catered dishes Jessica had ordered from some expensive restaurant. "Speech time," Jessica announced, tapping her wine glass. She looked stunning in a cream silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her hair was professionally highlighted, her nails perfectly manicured. Everything about her screamed success, and I felt that familiar mixture of pride and inadequacy I'd been feeling around her for years. "I want to thank everyone for being here," she began, her voice carrying that confident tone she'd developed since working in marketing. "Family is everything, right? And I'm so grateful that my father understood that. Even after the divorce, he's been taking care of Mom, making sure she has everything she needs." My stomach clenched. Something about her tone felt wrong, performative. $3,000 a month for 4 years, Jessica continued, smiling at me across the table. "That's real commitment. That's real love. So let's raise our glasses to Dad for being a stand-up guy, and to Mom for finally having the financial security she deserves after all those years of struggle." Everyone raised their glasses except Marcus, who'd just taken a large bite of turkey and was now turning an alarming shade of red. He was coughing, his eyes watering, staring at Jessica with what looked like panic. "Jessica," I said quietly, my hands trembling as I set down my own glass. "Honey, I need to talk to you privately." "Mom, don't be modest," Jessica said, still smiling. "You've earned this. All those years working multiple jobs, sacrificing for me. Finally, you can relax a little, right? Enjoy that money?" "Jessica." My voice was louder now, cutting through the dinner chatter. "I'm not receiving any money from your father." The room went silent. Marcus had stopped choking but looked like he might start again. Jessica's smile froze on her face, her wine glass suspended in midair. "What do you mean?" she asked, and I could hear the calculated confusion in her voice. She was performing surprise, but something in her eyes told me she knew exactly what I meant. "I mean, I haven't received a single dollar from your father. Not one transfer. Not in 4 years." My voice was steady now, fueled by a growing sense of dread. I'm still working at the cafeteria. I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. I nearly had my electricity shut off last month. Jessica set down her wine glass carefully. That's impossible. Dad set up automatic transfers. He showed me the account information himself. Marcus stood up abruptly, mumbling something about needing air, and headed toward the bathroom. Jessica's co-workers were looking at their plates, clearly uncomfortable. Tanya was staring at Jessica with an expression I couldn't quite read. Maybe we should discuss this later, Jessica said, her voice tight. After dinner. No. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against her hardwood floors. We're going to discuss this now. Where has that money been going, Jessica? How would I know? She laughed, but it sounded hollow. Maybe Dad sent it to the wrong account. Maybe there was a bank error. But why are you acting like this is my fault? Because, I said slowly, watching her face, the only person besides your father who knew about this arrangement was you. I'd been working in that school cafeteria for 8 years. I knew the kids' names, their food allergies, their family situations. Some of them came from homes where lunch at school was their only reliable meal. I understood struggle in a way my daughter never had, never wanted to. After Richard left, I'd moved into a one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that wasn't quite safe but was all I could afford. My car was 15 years old, held together with prayer and duct tape. I bought my clothes at thrift stores and clipped coupons like my life depended on it, because it did. But I never told Jessica how bad things were. She was building her career, building her life, and I didn't want to burden her with my problems. When she called, I kept things light. When she visited, I made sure the apartment looked presentable, even if I had to skip meals to afford cleaning supplies. I thought I was protecting her. I didn't realize I was making myself vulnerable. The day after Thanksgiving, Jessica called me. Her voice was different, less confident, almost pleading. Mom, I talked to Dad. There's been some kind of mix-up with the bank transfers. He's looking into it. I was sitting in my apartment, surrounded by bills I couldn't pay. The heat had been turned down to 62 degrees to save money. I was wearing 2 sweaters. Jessica, I need you to tell me the truth. Where has the money been going? There was a long silence on the phone. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to say the truth. Another silence. Then, Mom, I have to go. I have a meeting. She hung up. My daughter, the person I'd sacrificed everything for, hung up on me. That's when I decided to do what I should have done years ago. I called Richard directly. Barbara? He sounded surprised to hear from me. We hadn't spoken in over 3 years. Is everything okay? Richard, about the $3,000 monthly transfers, the ones you've been sending me for 4 years. Of course. Is there a problem? Is the amount not enough? I can increase it if you need. My hands were shaking. Where have you been sending it? To your account. The one Jessica set up for you. She said you were having trouble managing finances online, so she offered to help. She gives me the account number every year for tax purposes. The room started spinning. Richard, I don't have any account that Jessica set up. I've never received a penny of that money. The silence on the other end was different than Jessica's. This was the silence of realization, of horror setting in. Barbara, are you telling me? He couldn't finish the sentence. I'm telling you that I've been working at a school cafeteria, barely surviving, while apparently someone has been collecting $3,000 a month in my name. Jesus Christ, I heard papers rustling. I'm looking at the account information right now, the routing number, everything. Jessica gave me this. She said you were embarrassed about needing help, that you'd asked her to handle it discreetly. I never asked her to handle anything. I'm calling my lawyer, Richard said, his voice hard. Right now. Don't do anything until you hear from me. 3 days later, Richard's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, sat across from me in a coffee shop with a folder thick with documents. Mrs. Morrison, what your daughter has done is called financial elder abuse. It's a felony. I felt sick. She's not abusing me. There's been a mistake. Patricia's expression was sympathetic but firm. There's no mistake. Your ex-husband has been transferring $3,000 monthly into an account opened in your name, using your social security number, but with an address you don't live at. That address belongs to a mailbox rental service. Jessica has been intercepting all statements and withdrawals. She spread out bank statements across the table. 4 years of deposits, 4 years of withdrawals, usually within days of each deposit. $144,000, Patricia said quietly. That's how much has been stolen from you over 4 years. I stared at the numbers, trying to process. My daughter, my baby girl, had stolen enough money to change my entire life. Money that could have gotten me out of that apartment, fixed my car, let me retire with dignity. But there's more, Patricia continued, pulling out another set of documents. Your ex-husband kept meticulous records of every conversation he had with Jessica about your care. She didn't just take the monthly money. She created fictional crises. She handed me printed emails, text messages, a whole paper trail of lies. Your emergency root canal that cost $2,000. Your car accident that required $5,000 in repairs. The black mold in your apartment that necessitated $8,000 in remediation. Your breast cancer scare that needed $12,000 for out-of-network specialists. None of it was real. I felt tears streaming down my face. I never had breast cancer. No, you didn't. But Jessica convinced your ex-husband that you were too proud to ask him directly, that you'd sworn her to secrecy. He sent an additional $27,000 over 4 years for various emergencies that never happened. $171,000. My daughter had stolen $171,000 from me while I worked myself exhausted for $32,000 a year. What was she spending it on? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Patricia pulled out credit card statements, the townhouse down payment, designer furniture, a car, vacations, her boyfriend's failed cryptocurrency investments, spa treatments, shopping sprees. She was living a lifestyle her marketing salary couldn't support alone. I thought about her beautiful home, her expensive clothes, the way she'd looked at me with barely concealed pity. All of it built on money that was meant to lift me out of poverty. There's one more thing, Patricia said, her voice even more careful now. We found text messages between Jessica and her boyfriend Marcus. They've been discussing your living situation. She showed me her phone, screenshots of messages that made my blood run cold. Jessica, once Mom's too old to work, we can put her in that cheap nursing home on Route 9, the one that costs like $2K a month. Marcus, what about her apartment? Jessica, I'll convince her to sign it over to me for safekeeping. Then we can sell it. She won't need it in a home. Marcus, you think she'll go for it? Jessica, she's 63, not exactly sharp anymore. Plus, she trusts me. I'm her daughter. I closed my eyes, feeling something inside me break and then harden into something else entirely. This wasn't just theft. This was premeditated, calculated cruelty. What do I do? I asked Patricia. That's up to you. We have enough evidence for criminal charges. Your ex-husband wants to press charges, but legally, since you're the victim, you have the final say. I drove home in my ancient car, past Jessica's beautiful townhouse, back to my cold apartment with its peeling paint and leaky faucet. I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about the little girl who used to crawl into my lap when she had nightmares, who I'd held while she cried over failed tests and broken friendships, who I'd worked myself to the bone to give opportunities I never had. Then I thought about the woman who'd looked at me across that Thanksgiving table, performing concern while hiding the fact that she'd been systematically destroying me. That night, I made a decision. But before I could act on it, something unexpected happened. I received a letter from a law firm I didn't recognize. My grandmother Pauline had passed away, and apparently I was mentioned in her will. Grandma Pauline had been distant, wealthy, and cold. She'd never approved of my marriage to Richard, never thought I was good enough for her grandson. After the divorce, I'd assumed she'd written me off entirely. I hadn't even known she'd died until this letter arrived. The lawyers wanted me to come to their office to discuss my inheritance. I almost didn't go. What could a woman who'd barely acknowledged my existence leave me? Probably some token gesture, a piece of jewelry or $100. But I went, because at that point, what did I have to lose? The lawyer, an older gentleman named Mr. Harrison, greeted me with surprising warmth. Mrs. Morrison, I'm so glad you came. Your grandmother spoke of you often in her final years. That surprised me. She did? Oh, yes. She had regrets about how she'd treated you. She felt she'd been unfair, judging you for circumstances beyond your control. He opened a folder. She wanted to make amends. He slid a document across the desk. It took me several seconds to understand what I was reading. Grandma Pauline had collected art. Not famous pieces, but works by local artists from the 1960s and 70s, people who'd been part of the Portland art scene before it became trendy. She'd left her entire collection to me, along with a letter. Barbara, I was wrong about you. You showed more strength and grace in your struggles than I showed in my privilege. These paintings were bought by your grandfather and me when we were young and poor, before money made us forget what truly mattered. I hope they help you build the life you deserve. Mr. Harrison explained that the art world had recently rediscovered Portland's mid-century artists. My grandmother's collection, which she'd bought for a few $100s decades ago, was now worth approximately $900,000. I sat in that leather chair in that expensive office and laughed. Not a happy laugh, but the kind of laugh that comes when the universe reveals its twisted sense of timing. I walked out of that office with paperwork that would change my life forever, and I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I asked Jessica to meet me at a neutral location, a restaurant downtown. She came with Marcus, both of them wearing what I'd come to recognize as their concerned faces. "Mom, we've been so worried about you," Jessica started. "This confusion about the money—" "There's no confusion," I said calmly. "I know exactly where the money went. I know about the fake emergencies. I know about the townhouse down payment. I know about Marcus's crypto losses. I know about your plans to put me in a nursing home and sell my apartment." Jessica's face went pale. Marcus started to stand up, but Jessica grabbed his arm. "Mom, I can explain." "No," I said, and my voice was steady, powerful in a way I hadn't felt in years. "You don't get to explain. You get to listen." I pulled out the folder Patricia had given me, spreading the evidence across the table. Bank statements, emails, text messages. $171,000. I said. "That's what you stole from me over 4 years. While I was working 40 hours a week in a school cafeteria, wearing the same 3 outfits, skipping meals to pay rent, you were living in luxury on money that was meant to keep me from that exact poverty." "I was going to pay it back," Jessica whispered. "I just needed time to get established." "You were planning to put me in a $2,000 a month nursing home and steal my apartment," I interrupted. "That doesn't sound like someone planning to pay anything back." Marcus stood up again. "We don't have to listen to this. Come on, Jess." "Sit down, Marcus," I said, and something in my voice made him obey. "Because here's what's going to happen. I have enough evidence to press criminal charges against both of you. Elder financial abuse, fraud, identity theft. Patricia Chen, Richard's lawyer, estimates you'd both be looking at 5 to 10 years. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, please." "But I'm not going to press charges," I continued. "Do you know why?" She shook her head, mascara running down her cheeks. "Because I'm not going to let you make me into someone consumed by revenge. Because I'm not going to waste any more of my life on you." I stood up, gathering my papers. "I'm 63 years old, and I just inherited $900,000 worth of art from your great-grandmother. I'm retiring from the cafeteria. I'm moving to Santa Fe, where I've always wanted to live. I'm going to take painting classes and travel and do all the things I never could because I was too busy surviving." "You're just going to leave?" Jessica asked, and I heard real panic in her voice. Not remorse, but panic at losing her safety net. "Yes. And Jessica, I want you to understand something. Your father knows everything. Your friends know everything, because Patricia has been very thorough in documenting your crimes. You'll never be able to do this to anyone else because everyone will know what you are." "Mom, you can't." "I can. And I am." I picked up my purse. "But here's the worst part, Jessica. The part that's going to haunt you. All that money you stole, it didn't make you happy. Look at you. You're stressed, in debt from Marcus's bad investments, working 60-hour weeks to maintain a lifestyle you can't afford. You traded a relationship with your mother for temporary luxury that's already crumbling around you." I walked away from that table, from that restaurant, from my daughter and her boyfriend and their pathetic excuses. I walked away from 63 years of putting everyone else first, of making myself small so others could feel big, of apologizing for needing help. 8 months later, I'm sitting on the patio of my small adobe house in Santa Fe, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. The house isn't large, but it's mine, paid in full. My art classes start next week. I've made friends with my neighbors, women my age who've also survived betrayals and hardships and come out stronger. Richard calls once a month to check on me. He divorced Jessica from his will entirely, leaving everything to charity. I didn't ask him to do that, but I didn't stop him either. Jessica has called 47 times. I know because her messages pile up in my voicemail. At first, they were angry, accusing me of abandoning her. Then they became desperate, asking for loans because Marcus left her and she can't afford the townhouse payments. Now they're just sad, apologetic, promising to be better if I'll just give her another chance. I deleted them all without listening past the first few seconds. My neighbor, Elena, a widow from Albuquerque, waves from her garden. She's teaching me about growing chili peppers. Her daughter visits every Sunday, brings her grandchildren, helps with the yard work. She doesn't understand how a daughter could do what mine did. I don't understand it either, but I've stopped trying to. The thing about betrayal, real betrayal, is that it clarifies everything. It strips away the obligations and guilt and complicated family dynamics and leaves you with a simple truth. Some people will hurt you because they can, because they want to, because they've convinced themselves they deserve to. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to walk away and build a life so beautiful that their absence becomes irrelevant. I'm 64 now. I have my art, my friends, my little house with its sunset views. I have enough money to live comfortably, to travel, to help causes I believe in. I volunteer at a senior center, teaching older women about financial abuse and how to protect themselves. I tell them about the warning signs I missed, the isolation tactics, the way Jessica slowly convinced me and Richard that I was less capable than I was, that I needed her management, her intervention, the way she used my pride and independence against me. I teach them that accepting help isn't weakness, but accepting abuse disguised as help is dangerous. I show them how to set up their own accounts, how to monitor their own finances, how to trust themselves, even when family members try to convince them they can't. Some people think I'm bitter. They think I should forgive Jessica, give her another chance, remember that she's my daughter. But I'm not bitter. I'm free. There's a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. I've forgiven Jessica in the sense that I'm not consumed by anger or revenge. But reconciliation requires change, requires accountability, requires the person who hurt you to become someone different. Jessica hasn't changed. Her messages don't include real apologies, just excuses and justifications and requests for money. She's sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she did. And I've learned that I don't owe my DNA anything. I don't owe my womb anything. I owe myself peace, dignity, and the last years of my life lived on my own terms. As the sun sets completely and the stars begin to appear over the New Mexico desert, I think about that Thanksgiving dinner, about Marcus choking on his turkey, about the moment everything changed. I'm grateful for that moment. Not because it was pleasant, but because it woke me up. It showed me that the life I'd been living, working myself to exhaustion while my daughter lived in luxury on stolen money, wasn't sustainable. Something had to break, and I'm glad it was the illusion rather than my spirit. Tomorrow, I start my painting class. Next month, I'm traveling to Paris, something I've dreamed about my entire life. Next year, who knows? For the first time since I can remember, I'm not planning for other people's needs. I'm not sacrificing my dreams for someone else's comfort. I'm not making myself smaller so others can feel bigger. I'm just living. Finally, freely, completely living. And that, I've learned, is the best revenge of all.